So, I'm really excited about this leading voice because I have followed her journey secretly, she doesn't know, for a long time. So the fact that I'm now able to introduce her and welcome her to stage feels a bit full circle for me. So I have a background in marketing and comms, and Deborah Womack is a leader in that space and in that field. She's a trusted advisor. She helps CMOs, so Chief Marketing Officers, and CEOs transform their digital and data marketing programs. She has extensive expertise and it's been honed from various different spaces. One of the hallmark achievements in Deborah's illustrious career was her tenure as a partner at EY, Ernst & Young, for those of you that don't know, as a marketing practice lead for both EY and Deloitte Digital. She has been instrumental in shaping the marketing landscape. I can't wait for you to hear Deborah's story. Deborah, welcome to the stage.
Hello, hi, welcome, welcome. Thank you for coming out today. Look at all of you. It's wonderful to be up here and see all of you in your bright colors and your hair on a Saturday morning where it's raining. So I want to start with a simple question. For you. What if I told you that the world is on the brink of a massive transformation? Not just the world, your world. Right? The transformation that I want to talk about today, it's going to redefine the way you work, the way you live, the way you communicate, maybe the way you love. Right? It's a massive transformation. But before I get into all that, and thank you, Womack, for that glorious introduction, and I want to tell you a little bit about myself first. So yes, until very recently, I was a partner at EY, Ernst & Young. They're the auditors and the consultants, and I was brought on to lead the marketing transformation practice. I was also a director at Deloitte, but well before that, I was a filmmaker. And in fact, one of the films that I worked on, I was an animator, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that soon. One of the films that I worked on was nominated for BAFTA, and I worked on an Oscar-winning film. Now, I know what you're asking. Why am I here? Why am I at a tech conference with all these wonderful people? I also have a disability, so if you see my microphone shaking, I'm not nervous. I have a disability called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Who watches RuPaul's Drag Race? I have the same condition as Evie Oddly, but I'm not going to do a splits. Okay? So, that's a little bit about me, but in the next, let's call it 20 minutes, we're a little bit late on African time. So I want to tell you a little story. I want to tell you a little story about being different, being odd, about overcoming limitations and recognizing your abilities. I want to tell you a little story about being confident and finding your own voice. That's the story I want to tell you today. Okay? I'd like to tell you a little story about a little black girl. Hello. I want to tell you a little story about a little black girl growing up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. One of only 4 black families in my neighborhood. 4 black families. They used to get us all mixed up, right? I want to tell you that little story about a little black girl who used to sit in her bedroom, the pink and purple flowers, pretending she had long, silky hair, who used to dream a lot, who used to sketch and draw and be creative. I also want to tell you about a young black woman ready to go to university. A young, talented, scared, often unhappy black woman going to university in New York City. New York City in the 1980s was all about disco. It was all about drag queens. It was all about Studio 54. It was about creativity. There was punk. There was Madonna. I'm going to tell you that story about that young black girl trying to find a voice. It's about a young graduate of Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, New York, who had started working, because that young black girl, we didn't have a lot of money. So I worked my way through college, right? And one of the things I did, I used to be an illustrator, a fashion illustrator, and my fashion illustrations were on Broadway. in big billboards. And because they were on Broadway on big billboards, Vogue magazine got in touch. Now, for those of you holding your phones, you'll realize that there was no email. So they came through the school. I got invited to Vogue magazine. Yes, I did. This young black girl got invited to Vogue magazine. Do you know what I thought about when I was going to Vogue magazine? How am I going to afford to get there? I was living in Brooklyn, I had to get to Manhattan. So I got to Vogue magazine, and the woman said, as you would expect in Vogue, it was Vogue. Got to Vogue magazine, and I looked out the window, I dared to look out the window of this beautiful big building, and I saw all of Manhattan from way up high. And I thought, I can't believe I'm here. And all I heard her say is, Deborah, you need to travel the world. You're very talented, but you need to travel. You need to go to England. You need to go somewhere. You need to learn things. Travel the world. And I thought to myself, girl, I could barely get the token to come here to Manhattan. I don't know how I'm going to travel the world. Anyway, so this is my story. And it's also your story. Because it's a story of believing and knowing. It's a story about believing in yourself, knowing what you're good at. That's the story. That's the story I'm going to tell you today. It's about beating the odds. It's about being the only black woman in a room full of white, straight men who own a company, who are CEOs, making decisions, and telling you at every single career review, you know, you're a little aggressive. You're a little aggressive. We like your energy, but you're a little aggressive. You're a little aggressive, okay? So, when I was 7 years old, I was called into the head teacher's office. And there I found my mother sitting there, with a look on her face like only black mothers have, right? That, yes, And I was told, you're gonna go to special classes. Now, I was so excited. I thought to myself, this is fantastic. This makes complete sense to me. I go to special classes because I had been studying Japanese writing and Japanese language by myself in my little tiny room with the pink and purple flowers. I'd been studying that, and I thought, isn't this wonderful? I'm going to go to classes with all these special children. And that morning, I got up and I put on my best green dress, and I went in, and I sat down, and I looked around, and I thought, hang on a second. Most of the people in this room, I thought, there's that ginger-haired kid who eats his own boogers. There's that girl, my friend Carrie, not very rich, very poor, on the poverty line. And I looked around and I thought, most of this room are people who aren't well off. Most of them are black. I was shocked. I realized they don't see me as special, accelerated. They see me as special needs. They saw me as special needs. And I said, I couldn't believe it. But I knew something. I knew something like you know something. I knew that I am special. So I sat there, and because I could dream, they would go around the room, and one by one, they would, because they thought I couldn't read. So they'd go around the room, and one by one, they'd say, you read the first word, you read the second word, you read the next word. So me being me, I thought, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And when it got to me, I'll just say a word. Because I knew I could read. So they did. They came around and they said, and this kid said, the boy went, and I went, home. And they said, no, that's not the purpose, Deborah. That's not what we're supposed to be doing here. We're supposed to be learning to read. So they didn't know what to do with me because I could read, but maybe I didn't read like everyone else. Maybe you don't read like everyone else. Maybe you don't code like everyone else. Maybe you think because you don't code, you can't have a career in tech. I'm here to tell you today that the tech needs you. It needs you. I'm a marketing person. Technology needs me. All right? So I learned what I know now to be true. And that is, I need to believe in myself. At all times, I can feel insecure, angry, and all of those things, but I need to believe in myself. So that's the first thing I want you to think about today. So they told me I couldn't read, so I went to college, like I said, and I graduated with a first. Okay. Then I moved to London because I didn't have any money. So I moved to London. I took my fashion illustrations, and I was doing lots of illustration. And in fact, at one point, I went into a newsagent, I looked down, and I had 5 illustrations in 5 different magazines, one on a cover. And then Photoshop came out, and I didn't have any more work. So then I was in Hackney, and I was dancing around a handbag, like you used to do in the night. You remember that? Dance around the handbag, 2-step around the handbag. And I said to someone, I don't have any work. I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't go home. I don't have any money. And they said, you should get into animation and film. And I said, well, I love animation and film. 6 years later, I had my own company. I had 15 employees. Right? Remember, I can't read. I had 15 employees. I had an agent in Los Angeles. I had an agent in Chicago. I had an agent in New York. When I went to see that agent in Chicago, they wouldn't let me in the door. They called security and said, there's a black woman standing outside our building. There's a black woman standing outside our door. And I thought, I'll wait. I'll wait. Because I know I should be there. That's what I know. And that's what you know too. So now I know one extra thing. Here's the other thing that I know. It's only the limitations in your head today that will hold you back. It's only the limitations in your head. This industry, no one sitting around a boardroom, no one will hold you back. There's a whole group of people upstairs talking about starting businesses, being founders, solving problems. I've triumphed over discrimination. People who told me I was too angry and continue to tell me that I'm too angry. And guess what? Sometimes I really am. I really am. I look at this talent in this room and I say, why aren't there more people like you sitting around a board table like me? I own my ADHD, right? I can read. I just read differently than everyone else. For those of you who don't know, that's an adult deficit hyperactivity disorder, in case you needed to know. I use it as a superpower. Do you know that that is one of the reasons that I'm successful in my career today is because I'm a problem solver. So all my experiences have shaped me to get me here to talk to you today and have the privilege to talk to you here today. They've shaped how I think, how I work, how I solve problems, how I communicate, how I interact. And people like me are the future because you need people like me and people like you to train models for AI. You're going to hear a lot about AI and Web3 and robotics and fintech. You're going to hear a lot about that today. The world needs your perspective. It needs your perspective. It needs growth. That growth is going to come from this room. The growth is not going to come from doing the same old thing when I was a little girl of 7 years old dreaming of being here in front of you, right? The future is here. So my difference continues to be my standout advantage. I work on programs. This week, I've just signed for my own non-executive director role at a marketing technology startup company in the US, in the UA. Thank you. So I'm here to talk to you about transformation. And I hope I've taken you on a little journey to answer a little bit of that question of what is transformation, because that transformation is you, right? Give yourselves permission to own your whole selves. Give yourselves permission to speak up when you know you have the right idea. You know you can solve that problem. You're in a prime position to do it, and this means embracing your experiences and bringing them with you to work, because that's how you solve problems. What I do matters. How I do it is important. Why I do it is everything. It's critical. So, I've shared my little stories with you. I'm now the big grown black woman in front of you today, and I couldn't be more thrilled. And I want to say to all of you have the potential to reshape the way we experience our world today and in the future. I hope that you leave today feeling inspired, feeling like you've connected, and I hope you leave today falling in love with yourselves and your skills. I hope that for you today. Thank you very much for listening, and have a wonderful day.